Welcome back, New York sports fans, to an episode of New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. Ricky Keeler is back here with you. Well, the Rangers just don't stop winning. They are 7-0 in this postseason. That matches what they did as the President's Trophy winners in 1994. And you all know what happened in 1994. The Rangers take Game 3 in Carolina, 3-2 in overtime. Igor Shesterkin stands on his head once again with 40-plus saves. The Rangers surrender a goal late in regulation to send it to overtime. But not even 2 minutes in, Artemi Panarin delivers another game winner that he's done all postseason. This team's something special, folks. We'll dive all into Game 3, look at a return for the Rangers and what it could mean for the rest of their playoff run. And we'll talk how the Knicks now are the ones talking about the officiating as they head into Game 3 tonight against Indiana. It's all coming up next here on New York State of Sports. We'll see you in a minute. Want to remind you, of course, you can follow me on Twitter or X at Rickinator555. You can follow the show on Twitter at NYStateSportsIE. Or if you want to shoot me an email about your thoughts on this postseason, rickjkeeler@gmail.com is the place where you would send that. I take your questions, your comments. If you guys want to talk about anything on these shows, I'm happy to hear from you. I want to remind you that over the last almost 10 years, as the 10-year anniversary is next week, IE Sports Radio has brought you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to keep with the latest in sports and with our shows. Also, check out our daily updated website, which is IESportsRadio.com, for sports news, our latest blog post, which is one up right now. You should check it out. Our Hall of Fame Fans of the Month page is dedicated to each podcast, our IE Sports Radio community forum, and stop by the shop and check out the merch. Thank you for making IE Sports Radio a direct feed for all that is sports. So there's nothing else you could really say about this Rangers team that we haven't said already. You could have understood if they went into Carolina, a place where the Hurricanes have played well at home over the last few years in the postseason, and dropped the game. And especially after a first period where Igor Shesterkin had to stand on his head once again. 17 shots, 16 saves. And you got the sense, even when the Hurricanes scored in the first period, Jake Guentzel scores halfway through, his fourth of the postseason, and Genssel's been a Ranger killer. You can understand why the Rangers tried to get him at the trade deadline, just so they wouldn't have to face him in the playoffs. But even at 1-0 down, you got the sense that this team was happy with that. They took Carolina's initial pressure. They knew that the Hurricanes were going to come out and play with a desperation sense. When you're down 2-0, you kind of have to play in that sense. So the Rangers took Carolina's best shot and still was able to have only trail 1-0 in a first period filled with penalties. Rangers have still done a bad job of staying out of the box, but they've been fortunate it hasn't hurt them. They took a 2-minute minor for too many men on the ice 2 minutes into the game, which Steve Valiquette on the MSG postgame last night was saying it's a good thing because you get Igor kind of into the game early, and if you could stop that initial power play, it kind of still keeps the momentum in your favor. So I never thought of it that way, but it made some sense. 3 minutes later, you get Wenberg gets a minor for holding Svechnikov, but then Svechnikov gets a penalty for embellishing it. So Carolina erases that penalty. It turns into a 4-on-4. Then you have the scuffle in front of the net in front of Shesterkin. You could tell the Rangers are very upset that Carolina gets a lot of people in front. A lot of, especially after Game 2 with the whole incident with Svechnikov and Shesterkin. Rangers are trying to protect their goaltender. It leads to a bunch of penalties. Barclay Goodrow got it on unsportsmanlike conduct. Dmitry Orlov gets a roughing. Jimmy Vesey gets a roughing. Jesperi Kotkaniemi gets an unsportsmanlike conduct. So it ends up being 2 players from each team going in the box. So in a sense, doesn't really affect any power plays. Rangers got a power play late in the first. Jake Gensel gets called for a high stick on Keandre Miller. But Rangers can't take advantage. Shots on goal in the first period, again, 17-7. And especially against a different goaltender, which Carolina, again, made the change. Instead of going back to Frederik Andersen, they go to Peter Kochetkov. 22 saves Kochetkov had on the night. Rangers haven't gotten the amount of chances Carolina has had in terms of shots, but they've been able to take advantage of the chances they do get. And it's a good sign. They're kind of it's quality over quantity what this team is doing. So you go to the second period. Rangers get in the second period. Carolina takes a penalty. Jordan Martinook a trip. Power play, nothing happens. But then Artemi Panarin takes a hook on the same penalty, so it kind of erases things. Brady Shea gets an interference penalty. The Rangers can't take advantage of the power play. Rangers didn't score in the power play all night. Considering they've scored 4 goals in the power play in the series, it's Carolina. You have to think if you can hold the Rangers from scoring with the man advantage, you take it. But then 8.5 minutes into the second period, after Adam Fox gets called for a trip, Carolina's power play turns into a breakaway for the Rangers because the Zibanejad gets the puck, makes a beautiful pass to Chris Kreider, who delivers on a shorthanded goal, his 4th of the postseason. And all of a sudden, it's a 1-1 game. And all the air from Carolina's fast start kind of gets erased, especially when you still can't score in the power play and you allow Kreider to deliver on a shorthanded goal. And that's what's great about this Rangers penalty kill, is not only are they strong defensively, they have players that can turn defense into offense quickly. Where if Carolina's feeling the pressure to score and they make a mistake at the blue line, you're now able to advance the puck further. So goes in the second period, tied at 1. Shots on goal in that second period, 20-11. So Carolina had 37 shots in 2 periods and only had 1 goal. And Shesterkin just continues to make those big saves. So you go to the third period, and Rangers get the lead. They get it off a face-off, good passing from Schneider, Trocheck, Panarin, and Alexis Lafreniere. His 3rd goal in 2 games. Panarin gets the assist, Trocheck gets the assist, and the Rangers have a 2-1 lead. And look, Lafreniere is never going to be probably the number 1 pick that the Rangers got. But you're starting to see him emerge in this playoffs. 3 goals in the last 2 games. He has had a really good season with that second line with Trocheck and Panarin. And it's kind of allowed him to use his strengths in a sense. You look at his year this season, played all 82 games, 57 points, 28 goals. Just a strong year. I mean, it's a career high for him in goals, a career high for him in assists. It's a player starting to find his form. And going forward into the future years, the Rangers are going to rely on him to kind of be that, continue this reign of success. So good to see him playing well. Rangers keep the 2-1 lead going late into the third. Carolina gets a power play. Rangers can't take advantage. Then Rangers get called the penalty. But then with 2 minutes left, Hurricanes use the empty net. They get traffic in front. Svechnikov gets the tying goal with about 96 seconds left. Now, the Rangers had a chance about 20 seconds later to take the lead, but Kochetkov made a heck of a save. Used the stick to kind of poke the puck away, which is big. The Rangers almost immediately erased that momentum. So you're going to overtime. You're on the edge of your seat at home or wherever you're watching the game, and it's, especially after double overtime 2 nights before. And the one thing people say about overtime hockey is either it's going to end early or we're going to go all night. There's never a happy medium. You saw that with double overtime in Game 2. Less than 2 minutes in, Rangers get the puck in. Lafreniere does a good job getting it in. They set it up near the sideboards. Trocheck gets it, deflects it on to Panarin, who makes a heck of a between-the-legs play to put it by Kochetkov and win the game 3-2. Panarin's now got 4 goals in this postseason, and most of them, if not all of them, have been deciding goals. Remember, his goal in Game 1 made it 4-2. He had the game winner in Washington that won the series. I mean, this is a guy that has found the ability to get it done in the clutch. What people have been criticizing him for years. So the Rangers get the win 3-2. They now lead 3-0. The last team to come back from 3-0 in a series was the Kings back in 2014. Not saying Carolina can't do it, but you look at the way the Rangers have dominated in this series, and it's tough to really say dominated when the margin of victory has been 1 goal each of these games. But think about the toll it's taken on Carolina. The fact that Igor Shesterkin has faced over 100 shots in the last 2 games. And they've scored... Igor has stopped the bulk of them. 2 goals in Game 1, 3 goals in Game 3, 3 goals in Game 2. So 5 goals on 100 shots. That's... When you have that elite of a goaltender, you're gonna be competing for a cup every year with that guy. And we were talking about it in the IE Sports Radio chat. That somebody said, I think I'll give a shout out to Adam Karnick, one of the hosts of the Neutral Zone, asked this question. Is Igor Shesterkin ready to take the place of Henrik Lundqvist at MSG? I'm still not there yet. I think the one thing that's great for Lundqvist is it goes in his favor as he's made a Stanley Cup final. Igor has had memorable games. The 50-plus saves in Game 2, the 70-plus saves in Game 1 against Pittsburgh, which they lost a couple of years ago. I would put last night up there. But he has to get to that Cup final. That's the big key. If he matches Lundqvist and, heck, even wins the Stanley Cup this year, and you could say it's not fair, Lundqvist did not have this kind of talent that the Rangers have. You could argue that talent underachieved when they were here. But there were some special teams that they had. But this is the most complete Ranger team we've seen in a long time. Probably since 94. Because you look at the way their top 2 lines are performing, they're all getting the job done. Which is the scary part of this group. Normally in the postseason with the Rangers in the past, always be a top line wasn't performing and all these things, but Zibanejad's got 12 points. Trocheck's got 12 points. Lafreniere and Panarin have 9. Kreider's got 7. Even Roslovic's playing well. He's got 5 points. You look at the goals. Trocheck 5, Panarin 4, Kreider 4, Mika 3, Lafreniere 3. You got 5 players with more than 3 goals in this postseason. And they're all in the top 6. So when your top 6 is performing as well as the Rangers are, you're going to be in every game. Now they can win games like they did against Washington, where your bottom 6 deliver, your third line or your fourth line. We'll get into why that might be a case later in the postseason in a little while. But they're all scoring at an elite clip. And it shows they have a chip on their shoulder. I think they heard a bunch how they were the underdogs in this series. I think they heard a bunch how Carolina was the Stanley Cup favorite. And it surprised me when the series came out the Rangers were the underdogs, because they were the team that had home ice. And you think about the focus this team has had. Think back to the last 2 games of the regular season, which that's why they're currently on a 9-game win streak. When they beat the Islanders in overtime at home and then beat Ottawa. That Islander win was huge because imagine if this was flipped and the Rangers had to go to Carolina to begin this series. Kind of like what happened in 22. I'm not saying the Rangers couldn't have won that series anyway. But there's a laser focus with this group that wasn't here a year ago when they lost the 2-0 lead to New Jersey after winning the first 2 in the Prudential Center. It seems like they're trying to right a wrong. And now remember that 1994 team did lose Game 4. And Rob Brittamore's team, I don't think, should feel they're out of this. I don't think that in the slightest. But here's the problem for the Hurricanes. 0 for 15 on the power play. that's really what's done them in. I mean, 5-on-5, they're being aggressive, playing their game, getting shots in front. The tip-ins have been great for them. They've been utilizing that extremely well. Their top lines, when you look at the way Gensel's playing, Aho's playing, like they're finding ways to score. So it's not as if their offense is bad. But they've neutralized a guy like Seth Jarvis, who had three shots on goal, no points. The Rangers have kind of neutralized Teravainen. Kuznetsov was back in the lineup after being out for Game 2. He got 4 shots, couldn't score. I just think the Rangers have more options than Carolina does right now. The Hurricanes need their top 3 to keep scoring. Rangers could extend that out a little bit. But that's what's going to make this team special. So back to Igor. Think about what he's been from when he got that break to begin the second half to right now. And in the playoffs, it seems he turns it on and becomes a different goaltender. Now, he's usually this good in the regular season, but the playoffs, he brings elite focus. You look at his numbers in the postseason so far, 7-0 with 2.01 goals against average. He stopped over 93% of the shots. His career high in saves, last year in the playoffs, he played 7 games, he had 93%, so it's around the same. Had actually a lower goals against, 1.96. But he's faced 27 more shots this postseason than the last postseason. In the same amount of games. Now, in the 22 run, when they played those 20 games in 40 days, he faced 700 shots. And I think that's what's going to help this Ranger team is whether they win it in Game 4 Saturday night, 7 o'clock on TNT, or win it back at the Garden in Game 5 on Monday, if there is a Game 5. He's going to keep getting that rest. And I think the rest, if the Rangers do finish this early, would benefit Shesterkin more than it benefits the entire team because you're getting a guy off his feet for a little bit, get him kind of a new change of pace. That's where I think the rest benefits as a goaltender. I don't think it has too much hurt on the rest of the team, but I think Igor would be the key. And you look at it, the Rangers do close this out Saturday. Boston, Florida right now is 1-1. That series at least is going to stretch into middle of next week. And those two teams, you've seen Boston play very well in Game 1. Florida dominated Game 2, and you've seen a lot of physicality in that series. So where that series could go 6 or 7. Remember, Florida took them to 7 last year. If that were to happen, you look at a Ranger team that gets the rest, especially if, let's say, a team like Boston gets out of that. The Bruins have played a 7-game series, and then would have to play another one. And now you have the fresher legs, and you have the team that's ready to go. In the past, the Rangers were the team that had to fight and win 7-game series left and right. But the mentality has flipped. And flipped in a good way. Want to remind you, Rangers are trying to seal the deal Saturday, and you could seal the deal with Seal the Deal Wax Deals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitation. You're looking for that extra special touch. Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or friend, and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps, your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. Follow them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps or on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals. So we'll take a break. We will come back. We'll talk a return for a player to the Rangers lineup that kind of brought that emotional boost to the team and what could it mean going forward. And we'll talk Knicks. No OG Anunoby tonight. Jalen Brunson questionable, but the Knicks have also sent their own memo to the NBA about calls they aren't getting. And so, part of me wonders, can't this all just stop? You're listening to New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all those sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the '08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies,
And your one-timers,
you wicked wristas.
and be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode. IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
What's good, everyone? It's Drewski, the host of Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. On this station, we cover everything in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. From where we cover the Dallas Cowboys, the Dallas Stars, Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Wings, Texas Rangers, TCU, SMU, we cover it all right here every Wednesdays from 9 to 10 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you stay live with me on the Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Great win by the Dallas Stars last night. They tie their series with the Colorado Avalanche. Avalanche tried to make another one of those epic comebacks, but you could tell that series has been filled with goals. And imagine if the Rangers play Colorado in the Cup final, if that does happen, and you would have Georgiev facing his former team. Like that would be a fun story. And the other fun story is we're back here on New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports, is the return of Filip Chytll. Now, we've been talking about how the Chytll button would only be pushed in case of emergency, and it wasn't really an emergency last night, but Peter Laviolette makes the move to go to Chytll and takes out Matt Rempe. Now, I think that's the right call. I think when you look at what the Rangers need, and Peter Laviolette explained this very well, with Carolina getting that last change when they're at home, you want to have another scoring option available. And I think he wanted to also take if Rempe wasn't playing a lot, which he wasn't in game 2, and you have even more of a need to match Carolina's speed, then you bring a guy in like Chytll. And it's been a crazy story for him. He missed 78 straight games. This is a guy that was out since November with a concussion, tried to come back in January, had a setback in practice, a scary setback that you wondered when he was going to come back. And remember, he was a big part of that kid line 2 years ago. And he did well last night. 12 minutes on the ice, had a chance on a breakaway to get a big goal. And you put him on that line. So what the Rangers did last night, which I kind of like their strategy, is they put him on that third line with Kakko and Wenberg and move Cully down to the fourth line. And you already know the chemistry that Chytll and Kakko have, and Wenberg has done a really good job in this series on the forecheck. It creates less of a adjustment period for Chytll because he's already familiar with somebody. Like, that's what's great about this Ranger team is the chemistry they have all together. Whether it's Kreider and Zibanejad, they're familiar on that top line, and now you plug a guy in like Roslovic, who's got the strong speed. And adding Chytll is like adding a guy at the deadline. Remember, Rangers got a lot of heat for not adding anybody. Or when the moves they made weren't these sexy, bold moves that people wanted them to. Myself included. I was telling to give up that first-round pick and go get an Adam Henrique or Frank Vetrano or somebody like that. And you got to trust what Chris Drury knows about this group. And I don't think they've even thought getting anything from Chytll is a bonus, but think about the emotional lift that brings to a team. That a guy that they didn't think was going to play this year found his way to come back. Now you have to ease him back into things, but when you have a 3-0 series lead, you can do that. I'm not saying you take your foot off the gas. You don't do that by any means necessary. And I would even argue that when you look at this series, again, all 3 games decided by a goal. Rangers have 4 of their goals on the power play, but special teams is a key. And it's tough to it's tough to ignore that fact. So I still expect Carolina to win Game 4 on Monday. I would be shocked if the Rangers find a way to sweep for a second straight series. Would put themselves halfway to a Stanley Cup, which obviously that's the goal for this group. And I think the expectation right now is they're the best team going. It's hard to argue right now. Like, they're the most consistent team. They can beat you in different ways. They're really good. They've been historically good on the penalty kill. But those penalties have to drop. And I think that's also why taking Rempe out too. Because you have Rempe, who's known to draw penalties. And you also have Trouba, who's known to draw penalties. So you want to limit the guys that are going to make those mistakes. And you can't take Trouba out because Trouba is your emotional leader. So I'm sure Rempe will find some role the rest of the way. He's got a lot of potential. But if you can add Chytll over Rempe, I think you take that upgrade any chance you can get. And at least now if somebody gets injured, you have another option you can go to. So again, Game 4, Saturday night, 7 o'clock, TNT. Rangers will try to close it out. If Carolina wins, Game 5 will be Monday at 7, back at MSG. So let's get to the Knicks. Game 3 tonight against Indiana. Pacers still favored by 7.5. OG Anunoby has been ruled out with a hamstring strain. Adrian Wojnarowski reported on ESPN yesterday that it's unlikely that OG would play in Game 4. It's not official yet, but I don't think you'll see Anunoby during these next 2 games. Remember, Game 4 is Sunday afternoon, so it's a shorter turnaround. It's about 36 hours. And I think you look at this series, and tonight you're going to see, I think, a really slanted whistle in favor of Indiana because of all the stuff that Rick Carlisle's talked about over the last few days. But Ian Begley of SNY tweeted this out this morning. Amid the discourse over fouls officiating in Knicks-Pacers, league sources say members of the Knicks organization are upset with how Jalen Brunson is being officiated. Members of the organization feel that he's being grabbed or hit up and down the floor, and it's gone unnoticed by refs. In the regular season, Indiana ranked 30th in the NBA in fouls per game at 21.4 and opponent free throw attempts at 25.9, both the highest total in the league. The Knicks ranked 6th in fouls per game and 4th in opponent's free throw attempts. Can we stop talking about officiating, and I know I'm moving the needle by talking about this. You can't send every call or non-call or every moment of a game to the NBA. At some point, doesn't the NBA have to say, enough? Like, officiating is a very hard job. And, look, Jalen Brunson is getting to the free throw line. I don't think the Knicks should have a beef with that. I think that was a lot of times in the second half of the year, a lot of the thing was, well, Jalen Brunson's not going to the free throw line enough. But you look at Jalen in this series, if he does play tonight, and I think he will. If we take a look at Brunson's 2 games just in free throw attempts. Wednesday, being he only played 32 minutes, he got to the line 6 times. But on Monday, game 114. He's been in the line 20 times in 2 games. Averages about 10 per game. Indiana allowed Brunson during the season about 10 per game. In the Philly series, he went to the line more than 10 attempts 3 times out of 6 games. Now, McConnell's the guy that's going to be the one that gives him the most pressure. What you saw in game 2 is Indiana kind of pick up a full court pressure. I would relate that kind of what you've seen, like, I'll give a local angle, what Rick Pitino does at St. John's, where if a team makes a basket, they go and set up their press and kind of take them the whole 94 feet across the floor. You're seeing somebody pick up Brunson, whether it's Nembhard, but mostly McConnell. And you saw the sequence in the third quarter where McConnell kind of was picking at Brunson, and then Brunson finally got the end one. But the Knicks have been talking about the Brunson stuff the entire playoffs. Like, it's not going to change the more you talk about it. And I think what this Knicks team has done a good job of is kind of deflecting from the officials. Now, they've done that. They've done a good job publicly deflecting it. Now, you see they obviously someone leaked it to Ian Begley that they've done that. But you haven't seen Thibodeau pull a Nick Nurse or Rick Carlisle. And you don't want to see that. When officiating is the story of a series, then it's a problem. I think, though, the injuries by the Knicks have replaced the officiating being the story. The story should just be how resilient this Knicks team has been, being up 2-0. But sadly, we're talking about referees and foul tendencies and all these things, and it's just annoying to me. It really is. And look, the key for Indiana tonight has got to be defense. Like, the Knicks have house money tonight. The Pacers have no excuse not to win this game. They're in their building in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. It's going to be electric in that building. Their role players played well on the road, so there's no reason their role players can't play well at home. The Knicks don't have their best defender on the floor. You're going to probably see more minutes from Precious Achiuwa, more minutes from Miles McBride. Do we see any of Jericho Sims? Do we see Alec Burks? We'll find out. Brunson, if he does play, I doubt he's 100%. And it begs the question, if you're the Knicks, do you just sit Brunson tonight? Do you just play precautious and say, rest up for Sunday? If that foot can take an extra 36 hours, would you do that? Knowing that, look, the odds aren't in their favor today. Now, this is a team that's defied odds and kind of defied expectation and defied what people think of them throughout the entire year. But at some point, maybe you'd have to lose the battle to win the war. Because I still don't think Indiana is going to win 4 out of 5 and win this series. As much as the Knicks are running out of bodies, and I think they've got to start thinking of calling up Latrell Sprewell or John Starks or whoever's coming to these games to get them a uniform and get on the court. They are going to get enough from their core group to get by. And I don't trust this Pacer team to play good enough defense to keep them off the foul line, to play well in the second half of these games. The Knicks have dominated the second half in both wins. The Pacers have a tendency to get up the floor, but then they're the team that needs to keep the pace, and it's the Knicks that end up continuing the pace. So it's been a very weird dynamic in this series. I like Indiana tonight. I think they're going to find a way to just have one of those nights that you have in a series when you're down 0-2. But I do think the Knicks are going to get one of these games in Indiana, go up 3-1 and win this series. I had it in 7 going in. It wouldn't shock me if it goes 7 still. But the Pacers want, if anything, Indiana wants the series to go longer just because the longer it goes, the more injuries the Knicks might get. And you saw last night anything can change. Look at the Celtics losing to Cleveland in Game 2. So Boston's now going to go at least 5 games. But that's looking way ahead. You can look somewhat at semi-ahead for the Rangers, being that they're up 3-0. Knicks win tonight, they can take the Indiana soul away. Because imagine what a Knick win does to the Pacers. Being that Indiana's had basically a lot of the breaks in this series outside of the end of Game 1. In terms of Brunson gets injured, and OG gets injured, and all these different things, and they would be down 0-3. That would really, really deflate them if they lost tonight. Like, that's where I don't even think you get the courtesy game. I think Indiana loses Game 3 to getting swept. Which would be crazy, because I think these two teams are very evenly matched. And both have the same Knicks. I think the Knicks, though, you need to see a better defensive effort. What I mean is you got to keep Indiana from scoring more than 110 points. Muck the game up. Don't give them open looks for 3. You've got to be able to clamp down defensively. Stop getting on those pump fakes. Make them drive it to the basket. Don't let them take the outside shot. They love taking the 3. Make this game a low-scoring rock fight. I think it's the only shot the Knicks have tonight. Because if Indiana gets past 110, they're winning this game. I don't think the Knicks are scoring 120 for the 3rd straight game. You've got to keep this. If Indiana's going to score in the hundreds, make it 100. That's how low-scoring this game has to be. If it isn't, then it's 2-1 going into Sunday. But we'll talk more about that Saturday morning. We'll recap Game 3 of Knicks-Pacers. Of course, we'll look ahead to Game 4 of Rangers-Hurricanes some more. We'll get some thoughts from the team. We'll talk about that a little bit. And, of course, our next live show, Thursday, 2 p.m., we have our 10th anniversary show. We're going to do top players on each New York, New Jersey team that wore the number 10. So that'll be some fun. But it's hard to ignore 1994, especially when you saw the NHL stat that the Canucks' last big comeback they had in Game 1 was 1994, and the Rangers played the Canucks in the Cup final in 94. But this Ranger team has just defied resilience. It's a team that has come from behind constantly, and even when they get down a goal, you know they're going to find a way to rally. You know they're going to find a way to get that tying goal, and somebody on that top line, whether it's the power play or penalty kill, whatever it is, they're going to deliver. What a job Peter Laviolette has done so far in his first year as Rangers coach. He's provided the spark. And I think a lot of people thought Gerard Gallant was going to. Who cares what Laviolette's shelf life ended up being, but for right now, this is a team that is near a Stanley Cup final, near getting to a conference final, and then could get to a Stanley Cup final. They're that good. Knicks will try to get closer to an NBA conference final. A win tonight gets them up 3-0, and we'll talk more about that on Saturday. Follow me on Twitter at Renator555. Follow the show on Twitter at NYStateSportsIE. And then at IE Sports Radio if you want to follow all the shows, get the schedule for what's going on each day here on the network. You can email me, rickjkeeler@gmail.com. If you want to get your thoughts, predictions, questions, I'd love to hear from you. Maybe I'll read them on air. You should follow the Twitter account because over the last 2 days I've predicted who's going to score the overtime goals for the Rangers. I'm on fire with these picks right now. Maybe I'll make a pick for the Knicks game tonight or some bold one there, but should be a lot of fun. So from all of us here at IE Sports Radio and New York State of Sports, this is Ricky Keeler saying enjoy Game 3 at Knicks-Pacers tonight, and I will see you back here Saturday to recap it all. Enjoy the game, everybody.